So there are two types of special right triangles. The first one is a 45 degree, 45 degree, 90 degree. And so what this means is that if you have a triangle, it's a right triangle, so one of the angles is 90 degrees. But then the other two angles are both equal, and they're exactly 45 degrees. So the second triangle is a 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. So yet again, one of the angles is going to be 90, and then our other two angles are 30 and 60. So the 45, 45, 90 degree triangle is a special triangle called isosceles. Iso actually means same. And as you can see, the angles are the same. They're both equal to 45. And the effect that this has is actually making the two sides next to the 90 degree angle also equal. And what we're going to call these two sides are the legs of the triangle. So the ratio that you're going to get is that the legs are going to be equal. So we'll mark them as both being equal to 1. And then your hypotenuse is actually going to be equal to the square root of 2. We'll write this down as so. And you'll want to make a note card of this because this is a rule that you're going to need to remember. So we'll say the leg is equal to 1. The other leg is also equal to 1. And then the hypotenuse is equal to square root of 2. So this is what you'll want to make a flashcard of and memorize. And so knowing these ratios, what you can do is solve for one of the sides given the other. So let's just say that in our problem, we know that the hypotenuse is equal to 3 square root of 2. So if we're given that, what would the legs be equal to? So the way that we can solve this is we're going to set up a ratio. So I'll show you what I mean. So on the left-hand side, we're going to set up what we're trying to solve for. So what we want to find is the leg given the hypotenuse. So we'll set up our ratio like this. And then on the right side, we're going to use the property on our flashcard. So we know that the leg is equal to 1 and that the hypotenuse over here is equal to square root of 2. So on the left side, we're going to set up the triangle that we're trying to solve for. On the right side, we're going to use the ratios from the properties of the 45, 45, 90 degree triangle. So now what we can do is, if we want to solve for just x, we know that we have 3 square root of 2 in the denominator on the left, so we can multiply both sides. Sorry, I'm running out of space here a little bit, but both sides by 3 square root of 2. So on the left, that would cancel out. And then on the right, the square root of 2's would cancel out. And actually, what we would be left here is that x equals 3. So the 30, 60, and 90 triangle is a little more complicated because the legs are no longer equal. So actually, our first leg is going to be the one across from the 30 degrees. And what we're going to call this is the short leg. Then, our other leg is going to be across from the 60 degrees. Okay? And we're going to call this our long leg. And then, we're going to have our hypotenuse. And the rule that you have to memorize for the 30, 60, 90 is that the short leg is going to be equal to 1. The long leg is going to be equal to square root of 3. And then the hypotenuse is going to be equal to 2. So this here is what you'll want to write on your flashcard to remember the ratio of the sides for the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So let's work out an example where you're given the long leg as 4 square root of 3. And you want to solve for both the hypotenuse and the short leg. So first, let's just solve for the hypotenuse. So what we want to find is x, the hypotenuse, given the long leg, 4 square root of 3. If we look at our flashcard, we know that the hypotenuse is 2, and that our long leg is square root of 3. Then, to solve for x, what we can do is multiply both sides of the equation by 4 square root of 3, like so. And on the left, the 4 square root of 3 would cancel out, and we would be left with just x. And on the right, the square roots of 3 would cancel, and we would just be left with 2 times 4, which is equal to 8. So that there is our hypotenuse. In order to solve for the short leg, we'll set up another ratio. So this time, we want to find y, given the long leg as 4 square root of 3. And in our flashcard, we know that the short leg is 1, and our long leg is square root of 3. So again, we'll multiply both sides of the equation by 4 square root of 3. Would cancel out on the left, and then square root of 3 would cancel. And what we would be left with is just y equals 1 times 4, which is equal to 4.